I am Jeff Foxworthy, and welcome to Gamekeeper Podcast. If you want to learn more about farming for wildlife and habitat management, then, buddy, you are in the right place. Join the Gamekeeper crew direct from Mossy Oak Land Enhancement Studio as they discuss the latest wildlife and habitat management practices, news, and, of course, hunting. There's no telling what you'll learn, but I'm going to tell you, I bet it's interesting. Enjoy.
We're live in 3, 2, 1.
I wish we got a little of that pre-roll there of what Travis was saying.
Oh, yeah.
What did you say? You don't know.
I said I'm excited about this podcast because I don't, and you might have to beat this out. I don't know a damn thing about Chufas, so I'm gonna learn some stuff.
We're gonna learn you today.
I know. I see them, and I've unloaded them, and I've shipped them, but I have never planted them. So this is gonna be a good one for me.
You've hunted around a bunch of them.
Yeah.
Through the years. Yeah.
So, are you a Chufa guy?
Man, I'm a Chufa aficionado.
Do you have Chufas at the Ponderosa?
I don't. No, I don't.
What are you doing?
Yeah, well, I don't have any turkeys over there.
Oh, that's right.
So.
Well, you might if you planted.
I don't
wait.
think so.
You don't have any turkeys over there.
No, I got one hen.
Well, that's a turkey.
And I think, and she hadn't raised in 3 years. She hadn't raised a poll.
Well, maybe she needs some Chufas.
I think she's just an old lady.
Oh.
She's just hanging around, so taking up space. But I love seeing her though. But
Yeah.
look, welcome everybody, West Point, Mississippi. We're trying to get this one back on track here. We're going to talk about Chufas today, and boy, that's a really interesting plant. And
It is.
I got a lot of questions. So we got some great guests. I'm gonna start. Through the magic of Zoom, we got a guy that we've known a long time named Travis Sumner.
Almost too long.
Yeah, and through the years, we knew him through the NWTF and turkey hunting. He's on the Gamekeeper Pro staff, and now he works with the South Carolina Wildlife Partnership.
All right.
And they let people go hunting on private land somehow.
Hey, we got to get in on that.
Yeah, we do. Well, welcome, Travis.
It is I tell you, it's a cool thing that we do working with landowners to allow us to host a public hunt on their property. And if you go talk to the right people, they're pretty well like to let you do it because they like to see people have a hunting opportunity. And that's what we're about. We're just about providing hunting opportunities, work real close with DNR and their drone hunt system. We just wrapped up turkeys and we're getting ready for ducks this coming year. So it's a cool gig. You stay busy, I promise you.
South Carolina is a big hunting state.
It is.
Yeah.
It's a great outdoorsman state for sure.
And based on what I've seen you post on the media, man, y'all are killing it with the habitat and building awesome blinds. And I mean, it's nothing cheap. I mean, y'all are doing it right. I mean, these are very game rich opportunities for sure.
It is. The cool thing when I came over, now I've been here 2 years as the state director for them, and I got to learn a little bit more about them because I went on a hunt with them and it was ducks. But what we do now is, one, provide the hunting opportunity, but the flip side to this is we work with the landowners, particularly my background, and we've got one other guy that works with us, is helping the landowner make their property a lot better, just building a better house, better habitat. And, they enjoy that. They enjoy that exchange for us to be able to come out there and say, hey, look, maybe do a little bit more burning, or what if we get somebody in here, continue timber? It's those kind of things. But we are, and we also started a video series that's on Mossy Oak Go called Enrich the Habitat, Encourage the Hunt, if that doesn't sound familiar from something from the past. But we're posting things on that right now. We're in the process of putting things together for habitat stuff. So it's a really cool job. You give back to the landowner for him giving to you.
That's really cool. I hadn't been paying attention. I didn't know that's what he was doing.
There's so much you don't pay attention
There's
to.
a lot I don't pay attention to.
Yeah,
So
it
I'm
really
learning
is.
all kind of stuff today. I need to get in on this thing. That's for sure.
So thank you, Travis, for being here. And so let me keep going around the room. Dudley's here, Lanny's here. We got another guest sitting on the guest couch, Jacob Gray, who is from East Mississippi. He's a long-time gamekeeper, Lanny.
Yeah, and he is definitely planting more Chufas than you and I.
He has planted a lot of Chufas. He's a Chufa expert when it comes to planting Chufas. We're going to ask him a lot of questions. Jacob, thank you for being here.
Yes, sir. Glad to be here.
He looks like he's real excited to be here.
Yeah.
Too.
I'm good.
Do you need a cup of coffee or anything?
No, that's the last thing I need. I'm going to get warmed up.
All right. Well, looking on around, we got Mike is on Facebook over there,
In the
TikTok
house.
or something. He's going to fact check us. So, Jacob, watch out. If you trip up, he'll come in there and say, no, that's not right.
And we got the OG on the board today over there.
Cleveland.
Mr. Jason Cleveland.
Of
There we
course.
go,
Of
yeah.
course. There
Hit
we
the
go.
horn for Cleveland. There we go. All right, so I'm going to throw out the first question. I'm going to go back to Travis up here. Travis, can you tell us the history of Chufas? Who had the idea that, boy, these Chufas might work for turkeys?
You know, I thought about this a little bit and the history behind it. And, you know, when I was with the National Wild Turkey Federation, it always came up. So just a little back history on Chufa is it was over in ancient Egypt and Spain. Of course, we know Spanish Chufa. At that time, you know, referred to as tiger nuts as we know it. And they used it for a drink over there to improve digestion. It was one of the drinks over there is horchata over in Spain, where they made these drinks. It was a milky white, very sweet. I think, Dudley, you said earlier, talked about almonds.
Yeah.
It was all for nutrition. And I went back prior to coming on with you guys. I looked online, and you can go order this stuff, not just for a turkey, but you can order it for health reasons. So how in the world could we not have something better to make our turkeys healthy than what humans are ingesting? So,
Right.
you know, it goes way back, a lot of the Middle East area. So I think I was trying to think back the first time I ever saw Chufa, and you said that, Dudley. It came around, and I want to say early 90s. And when I went to work with the wildlife department over here, that was the first time I saw Chufa. The turkey biologist at the time, Dave Bauman, introduced, and they were going through the Turkey Federation. A lot of the Chufa was coming from Spain. I guess they, you know, run out of room to make their drinks, and, you know, over there it was liquor too. So we had a bit of a class on how to plant it, what to do, and we started planting it all over the public hunting ground, which people enjoyed because, hey, wouldn't a day go by, somebody said, hey, where are your Chufa patches on public ground? So I saw it coming into the United States where people started to practice planting this about the early 90s, right around there. And, you know, hey, the other thing I learned about Chufa that besides from health reason, it's an aphrodisiac also.
Oh,
Oh,
wow.
look at there.
Okay.
Bobby, you need
Bobby
to take
could
that
use
thing
some of
home
that.
with you.
Wait a minute now. This is the first I'm hearing about this. Aphrodisiac.
But yeah, I mean, they've even found it like in Egyptian pyramids and stuff. So
Yes.
it was a very well used, you know, trendy thing back then. If they were burying it with their important people, that makes it a big deal.
That's right.
And it's high in fats. They say that it's similar to like
the Egyptians were burying it with the mummies.
yes,
Wow.
yeah.
Yeah.
And so.
Sacred.
But
tiger
like
nut
the horchata in Mexico, they make it out of rice, and they call that horchata. I don't know my Spanish well, but horchata de arroz or arrozo. And then here in Spain and Europe, Middle East, it's horchata de chufa. You know,
Tiger nuts.
tiger
You
nuts.
didn't make us any horchata?
Well, you know, a lot of seed is treated
Oh,
for storage and things. So I didn't want to use ag chufa to make.
horchata.
Right. You know, I did make cornbread one time out of some of our
Yeah.
wildlife sweet corn, and then I looked at the label and said it had been treated. So now I know better. But yeah, you can order it on Amazon or grow it yourself and then make stuff out of it.
See these people? When the clock strikes 5, it's not the end. It's just the beginning. They have to do these things. They have to do those things. Enter the all-new LS Tractor MT2 and MT2E, a relentless force of innovation. Redesigned with a new hood and cab built for comfort and visibility, with enhanced lifting capacity to get the job done. Making these people the ones everyone else calls those people. Visit your local LS Tractor dealer today.
Moultrie was first in feeders since 1979 and is the leader in total game management. They're taking feeding to another level with the new Ranch Series line of durable and versatile feeders, perfect for both wildlife and domestic livestock. So Dudley, you can feed your goats. Whether you're a deer hunter, a hobby farmer, a land manager, or a rancher, Moultrie has you covered with several kit options, including a rotating auger, broadcast, or a gravity kit. And these feeders are 300 or 450 pounds. They're big feeders. All right, so guys, Moultrie is offering our listeners a 15% site-wide discount at MoultrieFeeders.com. Use code Mossy Oak with a capital M, Mossy Oak, at MoultrieFeeders.com and get that 15% discount. I'm not sure I understand. Who was the guy who said, "Boy, I bet my turkeys would like this"? Where did the connection come from?
I think, once it got over here to the United States, the wildlife symposiums and things like that, and this thing just kind of filtered in the door as to, okay, we see turkeys, peanut fields, if y'all see as much as I do down this way. And then all of a sudden, these turkey biologists through the Wild Turkey Symposium started saying, hey, there's a seed that's out there that's high in nutrition. It plants like peanuts. Let's get it out there and let's start trying it and see what it does for our turkeys. And, that would have been mid to late 80s. Dave Bauman, who was our turkey biologist when I started to work in 1992, 93, he had already had it on his mind. So I'm seeing through the wildlife symposiums, this idea came in, and the next thing you know, it was here.
Yeah, and there's been a few things through the years, Chufas and sawtooth oaks, that have just it just kind of captured people's imaginations, and they just associate them with being able to help their wildlife.
Sure.
And when I think back, and I through the years as Biologic, if we've sold Chufas, people all the time ask, can I? One of the first things is, can I plant it? And it seems to me there's like one of the things they've got to have, and I'd like for you to explain this a little bit. It's kind of sandy soils. If I'm correct me if I'm wrong, but they'll grow most anywhere, but the turkeys can't utilize them.
One thing you mentioned, I know with my work history, working with private landowners, particularly now, and NWTF at the time, people call you. And particularly where we are now, guys, y'all all know, where we are with turkeys. It was, if somebody asked me and said, hey, what are the essentials you would say have on your property for turkeys if it's feasible? And I said, well, one's good timber management. Two, some type of really good burning regime, prescribed fire, rotational burning, that helps with nesting and brood cover. I said, next would be clover, which we could blow that one. That'd be a whole nother subject. And I said, Chufa. If Chufa, it will allow you to plant Chufa on your property, you should be planting Chufa for your turkey. Diversity. It's always been about diversity and what we do to better the habitat or better the home. A clay loam soil, sandy clay loam soils, I've seen them do very well in. Any of the states throughout the Southeast, it's grown really well, and they need to be well drained soils. Sometimes I've seen and experimented in areas where I said, well, it looks really good, but it got really wet and they didn't make. There again, I've had people say, well, I've got clay soils and I planted them in clay soils, and the next thing you know, of course, a turkey would need a jackhammer to get them out of the ground because it's so compacted and so hard.
Right.
So ideally, I think with growing Chufa and having good Chufa is a really good site selection and good soil. It's got to be basically a sandy loam or a loam type soil.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I was gonna say it's interesting that it's the same genus and species as yellow nutsedge. It was just selectively bred thousands of years ago to grow these bigger nutlets or tubers.
Nutlets.
Tuba. Yes. You can find yellow nutsedge everywhere. It's an invasive exotic, It's a nuisance, but this stuff will grow anywhere, but it's not nearly as fit. Since it's been highly bred, it's not really invasive at all. In fact, you usually have to replant it every year. And unlike feral pigs, it has not like back crossed into going wild and invasive again.
Interesting.
And so it makes a great food crop for turkeys. They are incredibly
I learned
attractive.
something while I was in Iowa this past turkey season. You get calls all the time, can I plant chufa in this area? And basically, if you've got good loamy soils, it should grow there. But I'm learning that in Iowa and certain states up north, they are considering it an invasive, and they will not let you plant it. We've had discussions about sawtooths and where that is, but I've had people from Eastern Texas call and ask, "Hey, I want to plant chufa where I'm at," and the first thing I say is, "Well, what are your soil types?" The one thing that I have seen in my experience is if it's sugar sand, white sugar sand, it doesn't do very well in there because I think you're lacking in the soil nutrients that are there that are needed to get these plants off the ground. And of course, with any type of chufa plot and soils, definitely doing a soil test ahead of time to know where you're at for sure.
The Ferminator is the industry's most versatile piece of food plot equipment, allowing plotters to do every step of the process, working the soil, adding seed and soil supplements, and compacting, from start to finish with a single implement. It's hassle-free by design. Set it for the seed size and simply drive the tractor, and the Ferminator does the rest. Check it out at theferminator.com.
Hey, this is Toxie Hayes with Mossy Oak. Hunting and fishing, gamekeeping, and taking care of the land with my family is my life. And I'll be honest with you, the one app that I'm on every day and use more than anything is OnX. It literally has changed my life. From property ownership to roads, everything to do with understanding the land better. I even use it to plot acreages all the time. Every function I could dream of. Use coupon code Mossy Oak to save 20% on your next OnX subscription. Trust me, you'll be so glad you did.
So, Jacob, what are you? Tell us about your experiences with chufa. How long have you been planting them? And
I think I planted my first set with my granddaddy when I was 8 years old. So that was 97, 98, somewhere in there. And over time, I've probably planted thousands of acres by now. I mean, right now I'm planting about 100 acres a year.
And you like them?
I love them.
Yeah.
I love them. I may not do it the way everybody thinks you ought to do it, but like they do come back if the ground is right.
If they don't need them all, I hear they'll come back for 2 or 3 years.
I've got 2 or 3 spots that are my good spots, and I could not plant them for 2 years, and
they'll volunteer and come back.
Yes.
Yeah. What's the ground like there?
It's sandy, just like you said. It is. That is the best ground. Is the sandy ground.
Mm-hmm.
And you don't have any problem with it. The deer aren't any kind of a nuisance with it.
The pigs like them.
Yeah, I was going to ask about that.
The pigs love them.
Raccoons too, I suppose.
Yes, they get out there and dig. And I've heard ducks love them.
Yeah, I have too. That Catahoula Lake down in Louisiana, when they dries down, they plant chufas there. So diving ducks love them.
Yeah.
But look, guys, my question is, how do turkeys know they're there?
I don't know. And what's crazy is, as many as I plant, you could disc it up, after they mature, and you can walk out there and you can't hardly even find one. But you kill a turkey and you check his crawl, he's just full of them.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah.
But it'll mindful you when you walk out there and try to see if any's coming up, and it's hard to see them for some reason.
Well, they just the color of the soil.
Yeah, I mean it's hard to pick them out.
Travis, you think they can smell them some kind of way or something?
I've often wondered that, and it's just like Jake's saying. I've gone in a field that looks like landmine holes out there where they've been, and you watch them go right back in. And I've picked up the grass and looked at it, can't find a tuber or nutlet anywhere. With their senses, probably so. It's just like how do they? When they go through the woods looking for acorns every year, how are they finding those? But it's just amazing. I know one of the things that I've experimented with here to get them to find and scratch is when my Chufas died and it's turned brown, I will try to burn those fields off a little bit, just to burn that grass off the top. And they, you know how a turkey is in fresh black ground, they'll get out there and scratch. I've done that. If it were, some states it's legal, as we were saying, you lightly run a disc through it and flip them over to get them started in one. But that's all pertaining to the law, the state game law. Some states, they'll frown on you doing that, but I would think they've got a second sense about finding them. I think smelling them and seeing them and knowing where they're at once they find them.
So most guys, you're planting these things in probably May and June. And then sometime that summer, you're probably going to, and I want to talk about herbicides, but that thing is, so it's growing during the summer, it's making that tuber, and then y'all are starting to see utilization in the winter, in the winter months, and then going into the spring primarily.
Yes. Really, mainly the spring for me is, like he said, you burn them and run a disc through them or a chisel plow in February, because February usually gives you a 2-week window where it kind of dries out a little bit, and it's a magnet.
When you say burn, are you saying run a fire through it or burn them down with
run
herbicide?
a fire through it.
Okay.
Run a fire through them.
Yes.
Yeah, just take a torch out there and burn that grass off the top.
Okay.
And then, and where you're allowed, you actually drag a plow through it, which turns them up and gets them started.
Yes.
So do you think if you were in an area that, and let's just say your turkeys had never seen Chufas, and you planted a patch, would you have to expose those Chufas to teach those birds to use it? And then,
not that I know of. I think they can smell the dirt. I think it's something. I mean, as soon as you expose that dirt, of course they're going to go out there and dig, and then once they find it, and like the place where I'm at, I mean, it's just generation after generation. They just know that field is food.
Yeah. Are you fencing your fields off to keep the pigs out of them?
Not yet. Their pigs ain't that bad yet, but it will happen.
Yeah.
It's coming.
Yeah.
Unfortunately.
What about, so I'm kind of thinking like soybeans, there's got to be like a minimum size acreage field, or, if you go in and plant 1/10 of an acre, are they going to eat it all during the winter? And
I've heard people have that problem. Yes, they will.
Yes.
They say by the time deer season's over with, they don't have any more Chufas left. And the turkeys don't even come out there in the spring.
As Jake was saying, depending on where you live, people look at me like I'm nuts here. I usually start planting Chufa late June through shortly after 4th of July. And, what are you going to do about water? As we said, I want these Chufas to be there January, February, March leading up to the season. And I've had really good results. As I say, my old turkey biologist here, he wouldn't plant them in South Carolina until August, believe it or not. And still, you're looking at a 90 to 110 day germination period. So it's really having that there for the birds in the winter months, because we got fall food plots. They're going to be looking for hard mast acorns and things like that throughout the fall. But my experience is, as we said, we mentioned hogs. If you here in South Carolina, if you've got hogs, you don't plant them, because you will not keep them.
Yeah,
no means.
I've heard Toxie say that 1,000,000 times. Don't even waste your time. But
Right.
then there's ways you can keep pigs out of a field too.
Yeah, I've heard of them laying hog panels down or wire down.
Yep.
But e-fence, stuff like that. Of course, once you pull the fence, I guess the turkeys can learn how to fly over, go under whatever the fence, and so that would help.
So, guys,
Yes, sir.
let's Jake, I'm looking at you. What are you spraying to control the weeds in this thing?
When they get about a foot tall, or maybe not quite then, I spray it with Post. It's a chemical called Post, and
A grass killer.
a grass killer.
Cethoxidum.
And that's it. And I just leave them alone. Which I have 100 acres I have to do. I can't just sit there and babysit every single little field. I guess I could, but I mean, I don't.
Yeah.
And
broadleafs aren't a problem?
in some places, yes, but they're a pretty strong plant. They They come on up.
Compete well.
Yes, they compete well.
Yeah.
So it's a nut grass, but then a grass.
Yes.
Yeah, it's a sedge.
Yes.
So it's not a grass and it's not a broadleaf.
Okay, so it's called nut grass, but it's a sedge. Okay.
Correct.
So grass specific obviously won't hurt it.
Yeah,
Y'all
so
can
you
tell how
could
much
spray
I know.
it, with clethodim. You could spray it with sethoxidin post, like he's saying, fusilade, any of the grass killers.
Okay.
And do y'all use any kind of pre-emergent?
I don't. Like I said, if I had 2 fields just right behind my house, I probably would. Now I got a couple fields right now that I probably need to, and I probably should have this year, and I may try that next year. But
Okay.
I haven't done any of the pre-emerge stuff yet.
Okay.
Travis?
We do. We run it out, experimental, just because we've got them so spread out, particularly, and you mentioned this earlier, we do plant them for ducks here too. And we use treflin, triflurin, if you've got to you got to incorporate it into the soil. And then we kind of rotate those around area, and we use Prowl H2O is the other one that we put down.
Okay.
And that sometimes helps, depending on the site, eliminate broadleaf problems. You'll still have some grass problems, but if you get it on there and get it right, sometimes you don't have to worry about broadleaf at all.
Are y'all broadcasting these or planting them with a planter?
I've done both, and I like broadcasting.
You like broadcasting
I do.
best?
Yeah.
Nice.
At what rate per acre?
80 to 100.
And then are you
And
coming
broadcasting?
And then are you coming back and covering them up somehow,
I am.
or packing them? Or
I'm covering them with a do-all and packing them all at the same time.
how deep are you trying to get them?
Inch.
Yeah.
Yeah. I've heard folks say you can plant them as deep as 3 inches and they'll be fine.
I think you probably could.
It's a big seed.
Yeah.
I remember it's been years, and I think it was either a Management Advantage show or an NWTF show, and they were interviewing a guy in South Carolina that was talking about it, and he said that he would disc them 2 to 3 times while he was trying to get them established. And so they would create new little nutlets, and then he would disc them back under. He was like, I was trying to kill them. That's how much I was discing them, every month. And then, later in the summer, he would let them go and do their thing. That's the only time I've ever heard that. But, it obviously worked for this gentleman that was on that show. But nowadays you hear more about people, mainly using pre-emerge and then a grass-specific herbicide.
You see, I planted I got done last week, and I disced, 2 weeks ago, and in a lot of the places, whenever I was broadcasting, they were the ones coming up from last year were already like 2 inches tall.
Okay.
And like you said, I guess when I covered them up, they probably reseeded themselves too, if they started a little nut down there at the bottom of them.
Hey, Travis, let me ask you this.
Sure.
Through the years, I've always heard about these people that were real brave, and they would dilute glyphosate and spray over their Chufas. Bobby Watkins used to do that. Have you heard of folks? I know you have. You're smiling, but I'm not recommending anybody do that. But have you any experience with that?
No, I have not, and I know Bobby Watkins well. I have not with glyphosate on Chufa. If we were going to talk about clover, I might go somewhere with that, but no, not at all. I mean, I'm just, as we said, post sethoxidin, clethodim as my grass killers. That was the number one question, is how to get weeds out of it, but not a low rate of glyphosate. I would be a little nervous about that for sure.
But you have heard of people trying that, though, haven't you?
Mm-hmm. I have.
Well, I know you can't hardly kill, yellow sedge with
it is a
spraying
nut
on
sedge.
it. Yeah, it's hard to kill.
It is.
Do anybody use broadleaf herbicides over the top, like 2,4-D or 2,4-DB, that you guys know of?
I have in the past.
Okay.
Yeah. 2,4-D spot spraying it, 2,4-DB. I just don't have a lot of confidence in it. That stuff's
It's pretty hot.
Yeah, and one reason why I like to try to keep the stress off of them. Just let them grow, and then once they mature and that grass turns dead, and you just burn them and break them and
A few broadleaves aren't that big of a deal. You know, there's probably attracts insects that turkeys would eat.
You
make seeds.
You can't stress over that.
Pollinators and things like that.
And then what about in the spring of the year? You're just leaving these fields alone, and the turkeys are just finding them. They're there every morning.
And they're mainly in the afternoons. But you catch yourself every time you hear a turkey gobble. You're with somebody. You say he's in the back of the chufa field, or he's 100 yards behind that chufa field, you know, and it's they're there, and they stay next to them.
Yeah, that makes sense, especially if they're there in the evening. They're going to be pretty close. They're going to do the thing and go grab some chufas.
Yes.
Yeah.
What size fields do you think? What's the smallest y'all would plant a chufa field if you have a healthy turkey population?
The smallest, an acre. I mean, a half acre. I mean, whatever you got. I mean, that's all you got. But I got them from 1 acre to 10 acres.
Could we check out some of these this next spring?
I knew it was coming.
Sometime
I knew it was coming.
late March. Could we go see them?
He usually doesn't wait that long.
Probably could.
Yeah.
But so it's interesting to me that you're planting a lot of acreage. You probably have access to all different types of equipment, but you choose to, disc it up and broadcast and cover them. So that's good to know.
I've drilled them before, and I like the yield better of the
broadcast. I mean, our listeners have, a wide range of budgets, and it's good to know that you can just use simple.
And when I was younger, we used to use a corn planter. We had a old corn planter that, you cut the plates out real big. You buy some metal plates, and you cut them out where the chufa would fall in there. And that's actually how we started first doing them. But you get a little bit better yield broadcasting them.
How about what's your experience with that, Travis?
I would agree with the broadcasting. Now we've drilled them with a Great Plains drill, which took a little bit of figuring out. And if you guys remember back with biologic, there was a year, I remember this with the Spanish chufa, and it may have been while I was still in my DNR days, but they were almost the size of your thumb, like a peanut, which of course will not go through a drill. Now they're small enough, and I try to set my seed rates and figure it out, but I've drilled them and I broadcast them. But I do like broadcasting because I feel like I do get better coverage and a yield. I've talked with several people on the phone about row planting them like corn. I think you just do we lose some area that could have more seed in it? Yes, I would agree with that, because you've got those open rows. It's kind of like how you plant your sunflowers on your rows. If you're planting them on 33s, you're getting a bigger head, but I would like to have more coverage on the ground. So broadcasting is probably my favorite way.
And the turkey can just walk down that row, and one afternoon, I mean, he could take out a row.
Yeah, we have pigs do that.
Yeah,
when we're planting corn.
Has anybody cover cropped? Like, if you have an existing clover field, have either of y'all put chufa in that, or done anything mixed seeding chufa, or is it just straight chufa?
Just straight chufa for me.
Chufa for me.
I'm sure I planted it in an old clover field, but it's usually the clover just don't come back usually after that.
Hey guys, Dudley from Gamekeepers here. I want to tell you about the all-new Gunner Dog Bowl. It's designed for home and built for travel. It's customizable, leak-resistant, light on weight, solid on durability, and rust-proof. Like other Gunner products, they're made in Nashville and designed for everywhere.
This is Lanny at the Gamekeepers of Mossy Oak. I've been shooting Nosler bullets as long as I've been wearing Mossy Oak. Nosler ballistic tip ammunition is made for knocking deer down right where they stand. Nosler's famous ballistic tip bullet is the key. It has controlled expansion and bone-crushing punch to turn a whitetail's lights out. Bring home more deer this year with ballistic tip ammunition from Nosler. Buy now at nosler.com.
So can y'all, Travis, I'm looking at you. What's the difference in these domestically grown chufas and the Spanish chufa?
I think it's basically the size and the hardiness of the seed. It derived in Spain, and you guys know as well that there are so many people now throughout the South, Florida chufa. Here in what was Cypress Knee? Do y'all remember Cypress Knee out of North Carolina? And I think the difference is that the seed you've got coming from Spain is the original, original base, whereas this over here might be a little bit of a hybrid type seed. And I've planted them both and gotten really good results out of either of them. I know at one time, depending on how long it takes the seed to get over from Spain and how long they sit in those containers, does that affect them being in those vacuum sealed bags like you got on there? I've seen that a little bit, but I think you're looking at more of a condensed hybrid seed here in the United States versus what comes from Spain.
Well, these nuts are a lot cleaner. Than some others I see, for sure.
I like those way better than the
I do too.
regular bags.
Yeah, it's easy to handle.
They're a headache to deal with because
it's heavier than you think it is.
I have dug up yellow nutsedge tubers before and
ate them.
Not swallowed them because they taste so bad. They're so bitter that you got to spit them out. So. There's a big difference between the two.
Is it tannins like in oaks?
I think it is. It's some kind of tannins or something. You know, that's that plant's. That's the way it protects itself.
Right.
If all of them got eaten, then they wouldn't be able to reproduce. So humans intervened and made selections for larger tuber size and taste better.
Yeah.
Which makes them not as fit in a wild setting, because they're going to get eaten by a bunch of animals.
Yeah, makes sense.
Wow.
What about fertilization? How do y'all handle that?
I usually do about 200 pounds to the acre of just triple 13.
Let it rip.
So nothing crazy, just a little bit of fertility.
Yes.
Any pH issues?
Not usually. And I probably need to do some soil tests, but 200 pounds an acre of fertilizer, and the more the better. They'll get deeper and darker and taller, but so will your weeds too. Mm-hmm. But the less fertilizer is definitely not. Don't go cheap on the fertilizer. You need to go.
Yeah, you hear that, Lanny?
Oh yeah, I know. I hate hearing that.
That's where all your cost is.
Yeah,
it's not really the seed or the lime. It's the fertilizer.
That's right. Travis, what are we not asking? What
the Chufas they're not cheap.
No, they're not cheap.
So you might as well get your dollar. Might as well get your money's worth.
When you talk about fertilizer and how it works and getting it in there, and that, that's the key to any of it. That's like the salt and pepper that's going to make it taste good. But, liming, I think goes back before we ever get started, is that soil test and going by it. Recommended, I think the soil pH for Chufas is somewhere between 5 and 7.5 if you can get it there. We have done some work with liquid fertilizer and liquid lime. We are going to this year do a couple experimental spots because it's similar to peanuts with liquid gypsum. And we're going to, and it's a foliar applicated type fertilizer, and we're going to put that down, and it's supposed to help this seed be a lot hardier. It sounds like going to a lot of work to do something, but if I find something that's going to work good and help my turkeys, absolutely, I'm going to use it. So we're looking at, just different ways, and fertilizer's key. I have back everything from triple 13 to triple 17, right at about the same going rate, 200, 250 pounds to the acre. One thing is, how long do you leave? I was thinking about this just a minute ago, is how long do we keep you use the same Chufa plot over and over and over? One thing that I've noticed in my experience is a new field, man, it's great. No weed problems. 2 years down the road, 3 years down the road, I start to see a little bit more encroachment of a variety of different weed types. Dudley, you mentioned yellow nutsedge. I had a field that I got encroached on with some yellow nutsedge, and that goes back to these Chufas that you buy over here may have some of that in it. I've actually dug through the bag and found peanuts in there, but some people just can't do it. You can't rotate the field and go to another spot and plant it. But I always have recommended, maybe let that field lay out a year. I've gone back in just to spray the weeds. We were talking about Roundup earlier. I've sprayed a field just getting rid of the weeds later on down the road, maybe late June. I come back to the field and I've got Chufa sprouted out of the ground behind it, where I had an existing Chufa plot. Those existing Chufa plots, guys, I hate to ramble on. I mean, when I first learned about redisking and, establish, because it is a nut grass, there was I'm sure y'all are, Alabama Wildlife Federation put out a great book years ago. There was an article in there on Dr. Lee Youngblood, if y'all know him, and he wrote a great article in there about pre-existing Chufa, the timetable to disc it again, and he recommended a third time going back into pre-existing fields. And what you were doing is kind of reducing weed competition there for a little bit, but then, stimulating the growth, because it is a nut grass, and it just kept coming back and it was cleaner. But of course, on that last application, he applied fertilizer and, did what he needed to do with a pre-emergent or like Prowl H2O and fertilize them and let them go. And, didn't add any seed. He just had another Chufa field the next year without having to do all the steps.
Okay.
I've got one field that's 20 years old, and we still plant it to this day. And then I've had some where I've got some sickle pod problems, and like he just said, that stuff is contagious, but you can disc it one time after 3 years of not doing anything to it, and they'll be sprouting behind you.
That's interesting.
But I do spread them out. Sometimes if the weeds start getting bad, I'll move it over, because I have a bunch of big fields where I'm just planting this edge or this, and just come up out and get out in the middle of the field and just test it. But I usually end up planting the whole daggone field after about 3 or 4 years, because it's kind of addicting.
I can understand.
Well,
that.
if you get some sickle pod or something, you might could rig one of those wick bars, where it goes above the Chufa.
Yeah.
Or you might could just mow it kind of high and knock that stuff down.
So what do y'all say to the folks that say, well, why don't you just plant clover, because I want something for my deer and turkeys?
Go ahead.
You go ahead. It's turkeys like clover, but they love Chufas. That's all I can say.
Yeah,
that's a
pretty good,
very good way to put it.
Yeah,
that's excellent, because yes, I think you're missing a step if you can grow them and you don't have problems with hogs or anything.
You're not trying to grow big thick beards. Clover's a protein. I mean, the Chufas they just love. I mean, clover you need for your deer. I mean, it helps the tonnage of the protein that the clover puts out is.
Lanny, I bet we could top sow some Chufas like in March.
Yeah, right, early March.
Just, do you think they?
you
Travis,
think they would grow on a road?
I think they would eat it on top of the ground.
I think they'd love it.
We're just kidding, guys. Don't get any big ideas here.
So you kind of brought this up, Travis. I wanted to bring this up for our buddy, Mr. Bill Sugg. He's battling nutsedge in his Chufa. And I didn't know if you'd mentioned if there's a chance he could make that work out somehow, or what would be the best for either one of y'all? What would be the best way to deal with it? Is it that bad?
Well, I mean, it's the
The
same
same
species.
thing.
plant,
It's
right.
the same seed,
Yeah.
pretty much.
He's been.
Well,
he's had that problem for years.
There you go, Bill.
You could probably drill the Chufa into the established yellow nutsedge, or spray the yellow nutsedge that's up, and then drill the Chufa into it.
Okay.
We need a Roundup Ready Chufa.
Yeah, for real.
Yeah, we do.
He may just need to rotate it out for a couple of years and work on that yellow nutsedge.
Yeah.
I think that would be my recommendation. It's this conversation, and I don't have it in front of me. I wish I did, and if I find it, I'll be glad to share it with Mr. Bill. A fella told me, and he gave me I can't even remember the chemicals that he gave me, but he sprayed it about July when it was hot and just torched that stuff as hard as it go, and he let it lay out an entire year, almost 2 years. to eliminate that nut sedge.
And then replanted. That sounds like a good.
Then come back later on and replanted it. But I'd have to go back and look through some emails and some notes. But I do remember that was a long conversation, and that's, the calls that I would get about it. That would be number one is nut sedge. And you're kind of looking at that's Chufa. Then when you go pull it up, and no, it's not. It's nut sedge.
See, I'm doing that on a sickle pod field right now, and just burn it. I mean, spray burning it. Kill it, and I've done that for 3 years. And I go drag a disc in it today, and next week sickle pod's gonna be everywhere.
Yeah.
Sounds like pigweed.
Yes.
Yep.
Yeah. So Jacob, are your Chufa fields? Do you get a lot of satisfaction when they just look like it's been bombed? The turkeys have just turned it upside down. Is that what that makes you gets you?
Yeah, I mean,
makes you smile.
You can, especially when you see a gobbler out there, and he's slinging dirt 10 foot back behind him, and they actually have little spots out in the fields where apparently I don't know if they're sweeter or whatever, and they literally just dig holes, and then the hens, they just go around. But it's
interesting. Isn't it?
It's very interesting, especially if they can't. It makes you wonder if they can smell.
Yeah,
I think they have to be able to.
Yeah.
I can't help but think that, eating that high fatty Chufa seed, it's got to make a turkey taste even better.
Oh yeah, yeah. Chufa raised.
Well,
I like
it's a really fatty food source,
Well, so this is a legit question. It's got to be a good, healthy thing for them to eat.
I will say,
yes,
at our main place where we plant all the Chufas, the turkeys are 5 to 6 pounds heavier, bigger, just look like little Volkswagens.
Yeah.
But then you go down in the swamp on some lease property.
Well, there you have.
And they're puny.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't say that.
I mean, but I'm telling you,
mossy heads, probably.
Yeah, that's right.
They contain over 20% fat,
Yeah, it's gotta be
50% carbs.
It's got to be good for them.
Yes.
No doubt.
How do the poults move around in the established Chufa fields?
Well, I mean, right now, it's still dirt, so it's
And they're bugging.
yeah. So it's not hard for them right now. If you spray, which they're not going to really. They're not going to be digging, but they can get out there in it. They're pretty adaptive little creatures.
It sounds like a great addition to your habitat. It's
Oh,
something everybody
100%.
should consider
Yeah.
trying to have
Yeah.
someplace for sure.
Have one Chufa plot at
Yeah,
least.
yeah.
That's right.
What else should we be asking, Jacob? Is there something that when you were driving up here, you thought, I bet they're going to ask me
I've been doing some thinking. I have good luck with them in red clay soil. I wouldn't be scared of the soil.
Is that right? That's good advice there.
I've got some clay soils that's on top of a hill, and it gets hard as that table, but you run that disc through it, or just kind of expose them a little bit, and it helps.
I think, Lanny, we need to go see this in April,
Yeah,
probably.
yeah. On the first April.
Confirm what he's saying.
Yeah,
for sure.
So too.
1st of March is the time of year to really see. That's when they're killing them.
Yeah, it's just a little early.
That's about 2 weeks early for us. I don't know. We got something.
Travis, you got any advice for a guy that's thinking that's right on the bubble? What if you were going to give him some advice on planting Chufas? What would you say?
I would say if you're not planting them and your neighbor is, you're losing your birds.
Yes.
And I would definitely say you need to be looking to plant them, get some help, get started doing it. There's all kinds of videos out there now on how to plant Chufa, but if you're not planting them and your neighbor is, I promise you I know where your turkeys are going.
Don't be scared of them. They can be intimidating, but just throw them out there, let them grow.
Yeah, I like what he's saying. He's a kind of a can-do kind of guy.
Oh, no doubt about that.
Yeah, you just look at him. Well, look, guys, I don't know what else. I think we about covered it.
Yeah.
Chufas are really interesting, also known as tiger nuts.
Tiger nuts.
Dudley likes to drink them. One time I had a bag in my office. I used to sit there and eat them.
They're
pretty good.
they're good.
Pretty good.
Yeah. Mac, you got anything else to add? Go to plantbiologic.com or email.
Yeah,
Mac.
yeah.
Do we have any Chufas?
We really don't have that many Chufas
We have
left.
sold out of Chufas.
We got some more in, but we don't have a lot. So if you want them, you need to go get them.
Yeah. That's good advice. Well, Travis Sumner, we just really appreciate you.
Yeah, we appreciate you.
Always good to see you catch up.
enjoyed hanging out with you guys. It was awesome. Good to see everybody.
Do you ever get a chance to watch the television show over there?
Yes, I do.
Well, what do you are you enjoying it these days, or what do you think about it?
Yeah, I am. You know, I stay so busy. I don't know how much I stay in front of the television anymore.
I understand that's a good.
That's the hard part, but I do. I still enjoy it. It's great. You know, the Gamekeepers magazine. I've got so many people and landowners signed up for that thing. It's you know, it's like the Bible. It's a land manager's Bible to go through with new ideas and things to do. That's for sure.
Yeah, we appreciate you saying that. Mac, it looked like you got another question.
I did want to say one more thing about the Chufa. So our Chufa is a gold Chufa. And so I think that there is some slight variety differences in the Chufas that you can buy. I mean, there's jumbo Chufas. I mean, there's some that are – there's a lot of variety names that aren't just like buzzwords. And so I would like to say that ours is a gold Chufa, and I think it's a different Chufa than what you might get somewhere else.
That's correct. And one thing I'd add, you guys, because I know when we're not chasing, I'm assuming everybody in the room chases waterfowl. This is some great stuff for ducks. About 6 inches of water and a duck impoundment, and it's, you know, even to the deeper waters, like you said at Catahoula, I have seen some ducks just leave a muddy hole when they left out in the evenings where they've been dabbling in it. And then one thing I thought about earlier today when we were mentioning the duck in is we have a property, a landowner that we use for turkeys. He's a big duck hunter. When he drains his duck ponds down and we get up there to turkey hunt, where you think those turkeys are hanging out? And those down there where those Chufas, old Chufas were in them duck impoundments.
How about that?
That's usually what always happens. He's by them Chufas somewhere.
Yep. Well, Jacob, it's been fun having you come up here.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, thanks for being here.
Yeah, we hear a lot of good things about you. The rumor is that television show that was on the Netflix hit about Last Chance U, that you may have made an appearance on that.
Yeah, just a little bitty one. I was talking to Mississippi Slim.
Yeah.
Oh, that's cool.
I didn't know we had somebody famous in the room.
Yeah. There we go. All right, guys, this has been fun. Thank you, Travis. Jacob,
Yes, sir.
Yeah, appreciate y'all being
up
Yes,
here.
sir. Enjoyed it.
Yeah. Why don't you say
Yep,
goodbye,
absolutely.
Dudley? Why don't you say goodbye, Dudley?
Goodbye, Dudley.
Get us out of here, Cleve.
Thanks for tuning in to this week's episode of the Gamekeeper Podcast, and be sure to tune in again. Subscribe to Gamekeeper Farming for Wildlife magazine, and don't miss the Mossy Oak Properties Fistful of Dirt podcast with my good buddy, Ronnie Cuz Strickland.